I know there's a lot to think about when your baby turns 6 months of age. It's time to start that transition to solid foods, and you guys are like, okay, I gotta do new foods and tastes and textures. There's also this issue of needing to introduce the allergenic foods to your baby. Now, back when I was studying to be a dietitian nearly 25 years ago, the prevailing thought then and the practice was that we would wait to introduce allergenic foods to infants. In August of 2000, the American Academy of Pediatrics established at the time what were new infant feeding guidelines. And based basically on no actual strong data, the AAP said to hold off on introducing new foods. They said no dairy foods until age 1, no eggs until age 2, no peanuts, tree nuts, and fish until age 3. That was back in 2000. You fast forward to present day, the recommendations are exactly the opposite. Okay, emerging data and updated guidelines recommend for the early introduction of allergenic foods as a method to help reduce the risk of food allergy in infants. So what happened? By not introducing allergenic foods from the period from 1997 to 2011, the prevalence of food allergy in children actually went up by 50%. So it's obvious that restricting the intake of these allergenic foods in infancy did not prevent food allergy. And in 2008, the American Academy of Pediatrics decreed that infants could safely eat the big 8 allergenic foods when they were ready to start solid foods. So if that term is new to you, the big 8, they were the 8 foods that account for about 90% of food allergy. That's now been updated to include sesame, so it's like the big 9, and those 9 foods account for just over 90% of food allergy. So researchers were interested in wanting to understand more about why kids were having food allergies, and then they also kind of needed to admit that withholding these allergenic foods in infancy was doing absolutely nothing to lower risk. It was actually somehow increasing risk. So then in the 2000s, some new research started coming out. One 2006 study, albeit small, showed that infants who ate cereal had lower rates of allergy to wheat than infants who did not. A 2009 Swedish study showed some evidence that introducing peanut in fish early was better than waiting. In 2013, the leading Canadian Pediatric and Allergy Society said that parents should not delay the introduction of specific foods because it certainly would not prevent food allergy and might even increase the risk of food allergy down the road. So now we're starting to see a trend, right? Albeit not super strong evidence, but studies are starting to show that early introduction may be beneficial for preventing food allergy. In 2008, allergy researchers in the United Kingdom noticed an interesting thing about peanuts and peanut allergy. So basically in the UK, where infants traditionally do not eat peanuts, about 2% of UK children had peanut allergy. But in Israel, a similar group of children, but living in an area where peanut is a common food in infancy and childhood, the prevalence of peanut allergy there was 90% lower. So what was it about feeding peanuts early in life that seemed to be linked to less peanut allergy? Okay, so these researchers designed a study to look at differences between the two groups of children. So infants enrolled in this study, which eventually was called the LEAP study. They're in the UK and then randomized into 2 groups. One group got a safe peanut food during infancy. The other group did not. 5 years later, they published the Learning Early About Peanut study, known as LEAP. And LEAP showed us with very strong evidence that offering peanuts to infants who are at high risk for peanut allergy significantly lowered the risk of developing peanut allergy. Now, this was just for peanut, mind you, but it kind of opened a door and a very important finding. And then in 2016, the Chief Australian Allergy Society, they published new infant feeding guidelines for allergy prevention, recommending that all infants, including those at high risk for peanut, be fed these allergenic foods in the first year of life. And now we start the ball rolling, because in 2017, after reviewing the LEAP results, here in the US, our National Institutes of Health recommended peanut foods for infants. Around this time in 2017, my colleague, Dr. Ron Sunog, who's a pediatrician, started his website, eatthe8.com. He coined the term Eat the 8 and wrote a book by the same name, one of my favorite resources out there, and encouraged parents that eating these foods or offering these foods to your baby is a simple way to help them remember that introducing the big 8 foods can help lower the risk of food allergy. So Dr. Sunog's book, again, it's called Eat the 8, Preventing Food Allergy with Food and the Imperfect Art of Medicine. I'll link to it in the description, but it is a great resource for parents and practitioners because honestly, a lot has changed in the last 20 years with regards to food allergy. And I'll tell you something, parents routinely will come to me and say, oh, my doctor told me not to introduce egg until after 1 or 2. I was like, your doctor is giving you advice that is now over 20 years old. So with peanut, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, but what about the other allergenic foods? Okay, we don't have as strong of data for milk and egg as we do for peanut. However, there is research to suggest that early introduction of other allergenic foods may also have this same protective mechanism against food allergy down the road. So about the same time that LEAP was being conducted, another team of researchers in the UK, which also included Dr. Gideon Lack, the lead author of the LEAP study, they started doing a similar study with milk and peanut, fish, egg, wheat, and sesame. So this study was called the EAT study, Enquiring About Tolerance. Okay, and while the results from the EAT study were not as strong as LEAP, the UK Food Standards Agency did conclude that feeding these other allergenic foods to infants definitely safe and could play a role in reducing food allergy risk. So then other studies start to emerge. Between the period of 2010 and 2017, we're really starting to see that the introduction of allergenic foods is a way that we as parents and caregivers can help lower food allergy risk. There's one study of over 2,500 infants found that there was a lower risk of egg allergy when eggs were introduced at 4 to 6 months of age compared to later at 10 to 12 months of age. A different observational study examined the feeding history of over 13,000 infants and found that the incidence of IgE-mediated cow's milk allergy was significantly lower in infants who were introduced to cow's milk formula within the first 14 days of life and given it regularly thereafter compared to those who were introduced to formula after 3 months of age. And a 2016 case control study concluded that it had about 200 children in it showing that early introduction of cow's milk formula was associated with, again, a lower incidence of IgE-mediated cow's milk allergy. So not only is early introduction thought to be preventing food allergy, but withholding it could be bad, and we don't want to do that. A 2017 study found that avoiding these potentially allergenic foods during the first year of life significantly increased the odds of sensitization to the corresponding food. So there's some sort of mechanism at work here whereby early introduction of allergenic foods is thought to play a role in the prevention of food allergies. It's super strong for peanut, a little bit less so for milk and egg, but also there's a lot of very large studies that haven't been done for some of the other allergenic foods, so we need to see more research. So at this point, we've got really strong data for early and often introducing the peanut, a little bit less strong for milk and egg, but you might be like, well, what about the other 6 foods that are part of the big 9 allergenic foods? Where do we stand on those? Well, since 2008, we've known for sure that it's safe to feed the allergenic foods to infants. We've got lots of tips and lots of videos coming out on ways that you can make those foods safe for your baby. There's no data to suggest there's any benefit from withholding the allergenic foods, because sometimes parents get scared, like, I'm just not going to do it. No, you can't do that. Because one of the few things that you can do to prevent food allergy is to offer these foods. Be sure to check out my other video about preventing food allergy in babies. So the long and the short is, I want you to get those allergenic foods in for your baby early and often. Stay tuned as more research emerges. And I know what you're thinking. Parents always ask, well, what do you mean by early and often? I know that language is actually purposely ambiguous because we don't actually know. The EAT study, those infants ate the allergenic foods for at least 5 weeks by the time they were 6 months of age, with some starting as early as 3 months of age, which of course is not safe, and we don't offer foods to infants at 3 months of age. So you can't kind of replicate that in your house because it's not safe for infants to swallow anything except breast milk or formula at that point. Now, the LEAP study infants, they eat peanut foods as early as 4 months of age, but to be in the study, they had to be less than 11 months. Okay, and in the child study, they did show that starting milk, egg, and peanut before 12 months of age prevented sensitization to these foods. So all in all, there's really no exact numbers we know for sure about when you should start introducing. Okay, the AAP still recommends exclusive breastfeeding until 6 months of age. Okay, regarding when that window closes though, we're really starting to see that the protective window for allergenic food introduction, it closes around 11 months of age. So just kind of ballparking this, you got to get those allergenic foods in early and often, somewhere between 6 months of age when it's safe to start eating foods and 11 months of age when that protective window closes. You might also be wondering, well, how much of the allergenic foods should I be offering? Again, the answer there, it's not very clear and we don't know the exact answer. The allergenic part of a food is in the protein. So that's how researchers look at how much of the allergens should be consumed. They're looking at grams of protein. In that LEAP study, infants who they had 2 grams of peanut protein 3 times a week for a total of 6 grams of peanut protein a week until they were 5 years of age. 6 grams of peanut protein a week in the LEAP study. Does that mean that your infant should follow the exact same protocol as LEAP? No, not necessarily. Because there's really nothing to say that if the researchers had offered more or less peanut protein per week, that it would have had any more or less of an effect on peanut allergy prevention. Now, in the EAT study design, that was to get the infants to eat 2 grams of total protein 2 times per week for each of the foods that they were studying. Okay, and the intention there was that infants would eat about 75% of that, which would be about 3 grams a week. Okay, researchers found that 2 grams twice a week of peanut and 2 grams a week of egg protein were effective at preventing food allergy. So based on this, seemingly safe to say that even amounts less than the 6 grams of protein weekly, which we saw in the LEAP study, it's still good to prevent peanut allergy. So do you need to go around counting your baby's grams of peanut and other allergenic food proteins that you're offering? You might be laughing, but I definitely have dietitian friends who ask this all the time. The answer is no, okay? You don't need to count the grams of protein that your baby's actually eating. It's really hard to calculate. Just get in the habit of offering these allergenic foods early and often, okay? And it's not just like a one and done thing either. You can't just introduce the allergenic food once and be like, check, I'm done with it. You gotta work those foods back into your baby's diet in ways that are safe for their age and their developmental stage, because that is is you doing your part to help reduce food allergy risk? And as for the other allergenic foods in the big 9 that aren't peanut, egg, and milk, again, there's no data to suggest any benefit from withholding these foods, so keep them in the rotation too. And be sure to check out this other video I did for more info on introducing allergenic foods to your baby. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can get all of the emerging research updates as they occur, and good luck offering your baby these allergenic foods early and often.